Good evening, everyone. Hello, my name is Valerie Hillings, and I'm director of the North Carolina Museum of Art, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this artist talk with Scott Avett tonight. We're really excited. As you may know, this is Scott's first solo museum exhibition, so it is our great pleasure to be the venue for sharing the great talent that he developed coming out of studying at ECU and continuing on as, of course, he developed his amazing music career. So we are really excited to celebrate this truly exceptional North Carolina artist tonight and throughout the run of the show. So I would like very much to thank our sponsors for the show. We have up front, Larry and Debbie Robbins, thank you very much. And also Nancy and Ron McFarland, Soko Gallery, Chandra Johnson's here this evening, Alan Thomas Jr., and the Umstead Resort and Spa. So we're really grateful to all who make this possible. As I like to say, you're not here to see me, so without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the stage Scott Avett and our chief curator, Linda Dougherty.
For about 30 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions to all of you. So to get started, I would say everybody here knows you as a musician, and everybody all over the place knows you as a musician. You just had your 17th album come out, you play in arenas all over the place, and most people don't know that in addition to being an incredibly talented musician, you are a highly accomplished visual. Have been ever since you graduated from Eastern Carolina University in Greenville in 2000 with a BFA in studio art. Now, the question is, were you talked into going into the band with your brother in 2000 when you founded it instead of having an art career?
Yeah, okay. Well, in 2000, when I left ECU, I went back to the Charlotte area, to Concord, North Carolina, and opened a gallery. About a year and a half after that, kind of in between time after graduation. During that, I was applying to University of Florida in Gainesville to go to graduate school there to focus on figure painting. And I was told by a professor that I had Leland Walden, was his name, to go to Florida and then move to New York and paint. And that my music was good, but that I was born to paint, and I needed to move to New York and to live minimum there a year, but 3 years would really give me a good idea of what I was made of in New York. I deferred my acceptance to University of Florida, then tried to defer again, and as the gallery that I was just talking about, as it sort of petered out, and touring started to take over my life, and I attempted to defer graduate school one more time. The university there said, look, it sounds like you're going to be a musician. You're busy. Why don't you call us if you ever decide to go to graduate school and we'll talk. That moment, there was also a booking at Merle Fest that I don't know if symbolically I hinged my decision on that and said, well, if we get into Merle Fest in 2004, then I won't follow visual art. If we don't, I'm going to quit the band and give myself to visual art only, or at least primarily. And so when we got accepted to Merle Fest, we went and played it. I said, okay, I'm going to devote my time to touring and making music. But I had been warned of the dangers of not making art. Like, I guess there was a percentage of how many art students go on to work other jobs and don't continue to make art. That didn't make sense to me. I wanted to I don't know, obligation that I had to create things visually. So I sort of declared that I would always have a painting studio, no matter where I lived. So when my wife and I got married in 2003, that was after an 8-month break, which is the only break I've taken since I painted in college. I started painting again, and have painted ever since. That was in 2003, kind of overlapping the time where I decided to really do it for good.
And I mean, we talked about this a little bit, that it's almost been a secret part of your life, that your life as a musician and a performer is very public, and your visual art has been a more private, creative pursuit. And did you intentionally do that? And why have you kind of decided to bring it out now?
I didn't do it intentionally. I did show along the way, and like I said, after school, I thought, well, I'll have a gallery basically so I can show my work. This has always been about me, all along. It always was. I want to be a famous artist. You know, if it was a famous visual artist or a famous musician, it's less that I wanted to be it. It's just that I was born to be it. I mean, do that overall. That sounds so good, but it's like it's true. It's true. I knew it. I knew it from an early age, and I knew that I was talented early on. I knew how to draw. I mean, I knew it, and I don't read very well. I don't pay attention very well. I don't listen very well. But I did draw really well. So that was one of the things that I did well, and I knew that I wanted to. I knew that I could show off with it. So it's just like songwriting and getting on stage and acting and with the band. It was something that I could do very comfortably, and I think more naturally though than music. Like I'm much more naturally a visual artist than a musician. Music is something that I really have to work hard to maintain. And then, since I do it so much, I've got to be decent at it. I'm a better songwriter than I am a musician. I hope that's what I'm naturally. But I don't know. I forget what the question was. Just talk about it.
The question was, why you kept it more private.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a secret, and now putting it out.
Yeah, I just happened to, the last time I showed in 2012, I did a pop-up style show in Charlotte in an abandoned apartment, and it was a great moment and quite a little success. It felt really good, but I cleaned out all the work that was medium-sized. It was all gone, and now I realized that I'd been working on all this work. I've been making all this work to show it. That's really the point. I wanted to show it and talk about it, and now it's gone. And it was nice to make that money, but now it's gone. So I thought that wasn't quite right the way I just did that. One weekend it's all gone, and now I'm back, and I have all these large pieces, but I want to show at some point. So I felt like I kind of took a step back, or 2 steps forward. And at that point, I said to myself, I'm not going to show again until it's big. And that's around the time that you guys, and Shani and Soko Gallery were so kind, and the timing is so right to say, you know what, Scott, if it is right for you, we're here for you to do it. It's been really about timing, very natural. And that's something with Rick Rubin, our producer in the music world. He always pushed and promised that if you make good things, if you make things true to you, then everything else is going to fall in place. We don't ever lead with business with this is going to be huge or this is going to be good. It's always lead with this is going to be true to you, and if that is the case, everything else is just going to fall right in place, for good or bad.
And then we've also talked about the relationship between your music and your visual art, and kind of where you see crossover, where it kind of parallels each other. And do you feel like you approach writing a song the same way you approach painting a painting? And are there storylines and narratives that you play out in both places?
Let's see. I mean, I go to the studio and I can go in and say I'm going to work on something visual. There's always something to work on. I mean, always. And that's probably where I'll go first. Music or a song will nag at me, and there'll be an idea. As far as subject matter, They're probably one and the same, so probably the songs are the equivalent of what the visuals are. They probably are the exact same. If I was put to test or tested myself to make that song into a painting, Father's First Spring would be some sort of painting of my daughter and something going on with her. It would make sense. A lot of those songs that have to do with some of the family, that's pretty obvious. But I don't know if I know. I really don't. I don't really know.
Well, as an outside observer, I see a relationship between them, and I think we've been talking about this when we've been walking through the gallery, and it's this idea of kind of the truthfulness and the reality of what you're painting. It's your personal relationship, it's your personal life that you're kind of revealing and letting people into, and I think just like with your songs, that's how people connect with you, is that opening up, and in some ways it's also they see themselves in it too.
Totally, that is true. That is a common denominator. There's this. Have y'all heard of Rob Bell? Has anybody heard of Rob Bell? He wrote this book called Love Wins. He commented on the show before we put out this new record. He commented on the show at the Greek in Los Angeles a couple months ago, and I'd never heard this before, but I've wanted to articulate it. He said, "This show," he said, it was an attack on cynicism, which is great. There's an onslaught, and he said it was so political, and I was like, "Oh, okay, hold on, what?" He said it's so political because it brought so many people to one spot, and they weren't raging against anything. They were just there jamming, having a good time, and together. And there's no way they all agree. I think that is a direct reflection of trust in our personal relationships, and everything about our spirituality, our politics, our emotion, and our feeling about everything is tied up in our little personal experiences. And that goes back to just trusting that if I exploit that and show that, I don't have to go searching for inspiration or a story. It's all right there. I say that because I think that has to happen a lot when I'm pulling up something very personal and thinking, who wants a portrait of this? Like, why would anybody want to share space with this? That's a dumb way of thinking anyway. That's not the point. I really have to avoid those thoughts anyway. But I have to just trust that all those little personal relationships are they're universal. That's the point.
And for those of you who haven't seen the show yet, there's one gallery that's filled with very large-scale portrait paintings. These are monumental paintings. They're larger than life. I would say they're about 8 or 9 feet tall for the most part. Could you talk about why you paint at that scale?
Yeah. So it started that I just wanted to, I love painters like Courbet and Caravaggio, obviously. I love the idea of the underdog. I don't know, I just came up that way. It was blue-collar America is where I'm from, and I connect to it and relate to it. So even in school, I was wanting to paint glorified versions of blue-collar employees and people that I understood and was around a lot. In this case, I was in a space that was very, very large, and that's what I saw. So I saw the walls lined with paintings that were big enough to look right in that space, and I wanted to glorify family members. I wanted to glorify myself, but I wanted to just make it big and larger than life, and make it, praise it in a way, celebrate it in a way. At the time, people that weren't really known, that well known, really that's important to me. As just something to help me justify what I was doing. I also learned that my stroke is much more. It's much more of this. I'm not that way with songwriting or music. Like even my management of our business, I have to micromanage and get detailed a lot. However, when it comes to managing songs and music, and that's where I'm so thankful that Seth will come in, because that's not my stroke. It's not like, oh, well, I think there's well, not an infinite, but there's so many ways that things can go right. And I like whenever it just falls in there, I'm good. I don't think there's only one way it's gonna go right, or gonna go well, but there's a lot of ways it can go well. So with that, I'm good, and I'm moving on. That speaks a little bit to what I was saying about my motives starting to get mixed the longer I work on a piece as well. Same thing with music. The longer I spend with something, there's a shelf life where it stops being, there's like this golden moment, and it stops being that. It starts, the motives are starting to get mixed in a way. And so I always know when that ends, and I've torn down a lot of canvases off the stretchers because of it, that I put a lot of time in and just looked at it as an exercise or practice in painting, and just leave it at that.
And I think in the show there are 2 paintings side by side, and one you said you spent 9 months on, and the other 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 of the same size, some of the 9-footers, yeah. And it's incredible, the one that was done in 2 weeks. I had more control of the paint and color the whole time. That 2 weeks was, it was fast, and it was in control, and the other one was so painful to make. It was out of control, and I repainted it over and over and over, and it was not fun to paint. It was such a pain. And the motives were very clear. I went in with very clear motives on that's the toilet tile, and it was meant to overwork that. Like I went in, I wanted to really work that space, the space on the canvas, so the page. The other one, I sort of just took what I learned and did it fast.
When we started working on this show together, I loved finding out your connections to the museum that already existed. So not only did the Avett brothers play here early on, I think it was 2007, I found out that when you were at ECU, you would come here and spend a lot of time in the galleries, and not in the modern and contemporary galleries, in the old master painting galleries. Can you talk a little bit about what draws you to those paintings?
Yeah. Well, I came to see the Ribera a lot.
The Ribera.
Yeah, I looked at that one a lot because he was probably as good as Caravaggio, and his handling of flesh was important. Light, chiaroscuro lighting. But also, I think what my relationship really started was when I was way into this painter, Odd Neritrum, and you had this Odd Neritrum painting here, and I got in an argument with the security guard here because I was right up on it while I was on it. Well, it did, but while I was on it, it was really dusty. And so I was offended when she told me to back up, and I said, "Well, the painting, at my defense, I figure, well, I'll skew this a bit. I'm like, the painting is so dusty. Why don't you clean the painting? What is this? Like, seriously?" But I mean, this is the closest museum to me, and so it's at the time it was, and so well, it still is. Yeah. Well, maybe not, but it's close. And, I mean, I was just studying and seeing those masters, anything that was chiaroscuro lighting, that was what I was going to look at, to see how something pops off the page from light to dark. That's really what it was all about.
So one thing I'll let you know, the next time you come back to the museum, in the other building, where our permanent collection galleries are, we've hung one of Scott's paintings in the old master painting galleries. It's in a room called the Kunstkammer, and it's the cover from your album, I Am Loving You, and it's the painting that was the cover for the album, and it's hanging next to a 17th century Flemish painting that's very much in the manner and style of the artist that he's looking at, Caravaggio. So it's a really nice pairing that you'll have to come back and look at when that building's there.
Yeah, it worked out perfect.
And then... Before we open it up for questions, I'd like to kind of go back to this idea that you brought up early on, where you said things like, above all else, I'm an artist, I'm a musician by default, and then just kind of your approach to creativity and how that statement plays into it. This idea of needing to express yourself, I guess, getting out.
Yeah, I think all this has been an exercise for me yesterday and today, and the whole show, just having the show, is an exercise in accepting gratitude from other people, accepting my own greatness, and saying, and by no means meaning that I'm special because of that. Like, it's such an exercise in that, and I'm old enough now that I really have that in check in my mind. But even that statement, like I just made, I'm not even sure what it means. And like trying to talk about all this stuff and make explanations for the work, it's all nonsense. I really just know very little about what any of it means. A lot of it's in hindsight, where I look back and go, oh, I think maybe what I was doing was this or that. It's much better for other people to let me know what I was doing, because really, it's being done to them. It's already done for me. But at this point, I don't think a whole lot about any of that, about what I am first or second. That's at this moment. Now, when I'm writing and thinking about it, I'm sure I'll dissect it again. But it's much more instinctual right now, and I'm very thankful for that. I feel it's a gift and a blessing to be in that place where I can let it be instinctual and make that space and that time for that. To be able to say, it's not right today, and I won't do it. That's the discipline that I really follow now, instead of trying to force it to happen.
When we had a conversation like this before at SoCo Gallery, at the end of it, someone said to you, well, if you were forced to choose, what would you pick, being a musician or an artist? And I think that was just not a question to ask, because I think for creative people, it doesn't necessarily matter what form it takes, it's what you're trying to express. It can be a song, it can be a painting, it can be a performance.
Yeah.
The method and the process is not as important as how it gets out there.
Yeah. I have a lot of theories come to me. Like this theory about this has been an exercise on ego. I just tested that on you guys. I'm not sure if it works. It's not sussed out or anything like that. But I have another theory that I think, and I just thought about this just started now. Words, just like screens for silk screens, just like brushes, just like our fingers, a piece of cardboard, whatever. These are all, in my mind, if I'm thinking about making work, they're all just a set of brushes. Not to be cliche, but they're just a set of brushes in my work in my studio. And words are no different than that palette there with brushes. It's just another shape. They almost are letters, They almost do make sounds. I mean, it's all so blended and mushed together that I'm just trying to go with it and recognize and be aware of the gift that it is to be able to even do it, and for it to be a problem or not at any moment. That's what a blessing that is, what a privilege.
Okay, we're going to let you all ask questions, and I think there's a mic. Yeah.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. For someone who's so visual, like when you watch you on stage, you're very visual, you're moving around, we see you, we're watching you, we love it. We're talk about your broad strokes. Why the title Invisible for the show?
Yes. What was the first name? What was the first time?
The end of a secret.
Okay. That's where it started. That was another bad idea. Because I had this whole thing like, what's at the end of the secret? And it's like, well, the truth is what's at the end of the secret. Which is also like with the new record, Closer Together. I was like, hey, Closer Together, Seth. And I was like, oh, that's a terrible idea. So I was like, no, we got to do it. It's good. But when we were going with the end of the secret, which might not be the truth, the end of the secret is a lie. But we were talking about how it would print on the book or on a poster, and I was like, well, it'd be cool if it sort of faded, or was invisible. We used some clear ink or something like that. And Bob Chase, who actually is responsible for printing that book and putting it together, he heard that and saw that in the whole concept, and he's like, invisible. So he didn't tell me instantly. He's like, oh, okay, I'll talk to you later. And then he got hung up pretty quick, and then developed it when he presented. It was like, oh, that's good. That's good. It's kind of glorifying something that's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be true. Just like a lot of songs, they don't necessarily have to be true to be true. I don't know if I'm hitting it tonight. We'll just listen.
If you stand up, I can make your.
Yeah.
So my question would be, how do you find balance between being a visual artist, a musician, father, a husband, your family? That's a billion hours. How do you find the balance to do all the things that you need to do?
I'm going to defer to my wife. I think she'd be able to say whether I actually do find balance. We don't answer that, but
Can we talk after?
What's the example? I don't know if this explains that, but like the other day we were doing something and Bob was telling, both of us were in the same place, and Bob was like, "Man, I am so off today and so worn out." We were just like, and we were going into something that was going to be 6 hours long. Let's just be off. Let's just be off in this. And that's a discipline, like trying not to, that's always a big part of therapy, like you embrace whatever it is you are, you let it be, and you don't try to fight it. That's important for me to listen to that whenever it's saying don't go to the studio. And I have more fun when I'm listening to that and not doing constantly. And I start undoing, non-doing. And then when I do, it's much more productive. It's so much more productive. It's like it takes so much less time to make good things because I'm rested. I'm having fun. There was something about doodling. Like all of this is just a bunch of doodling. Really, ultimately, it's just somebody. Somehow I've fallen into this pattern where I take time to doodle. And I'm doodling on big pieces of canvas, and doodling on notebook paper, and doodling on the recording gear, and so it's really fun. So it never feels like so much. At this point, it's not always been this way, and it could be different again for sure. But at this point, it feels like the privilege that it is. It's a lot of fun. I'm trying to take that.
Another question.
So you said that you knew from a young age that you were good at these things that you're good at. With having children who are young, do you see some of yourself in them with their creativity?
Yeah, and to clarify, I wasn't sure I was going to be good at any of them. I just knew that I was going to be famous for it. I'm a true believer that every single one of us is a beloved son or daughter of God, period. I know that for certain. And because of that, this isn't the only bright, shining person in this room. Every single one of us. It's insane. It's insane how true that is. It's so true that it's not so special, right? And that's great. That's good. That's a good thing. So that was I think that's what I'm articulating as like I'm going to be great. But when I'm great at whatever, it never. And our parents told us that exact thing. Dad used to say, if you're a carpenter, you're going to be a great carpenter. And you can be a very popular carpenter these days. That's great. You could be famous for that. But I just always lived like that, like someone was watching. It was God the whole time. It was right there with me and in me, the whole time. And when I was younger, it was so much easier to access that. And now, growing older, it's about opening up to access that again. Because for a little while, I've been thinking that it wasn't that, And I don't know. That's what I'm getting at. I'm not, I didn't really know that things would work out. And they weren't. I'm in such it's really a particular, peculiar position. The way that Seth and I and Bob and the rest of the group, the way that we have had success is so peculiar in particular to, specific to our situation. Not this art career, it's the same thing. Here we are in the museum show, and I mean, I've really not shown, I mean, I haven't shown much at all. That's so bizarre to me, but expected, because I know that, because I know what I am, you know. I know what we are. Well, maybe not. I like this theory a lot. I'm really fond of this. It's a good one. You know, it makes everybody happy.
Yeah, as someone who is not visual, I'm wondering what is in your mind when you're going to a blank canvas and you pick up a brush? Do you have an image that you're trying to put onto a page? And how much does what's in your mind change as you're going through the process of painting?
It can change 180, you know, it can change 100%. And it's always different every time I approach canvas. I've used grids before to try to get likeness as close as I can. I have gone to a canvas with nothing, you know, no reference of anything, and just gone at it to see what happened. I've designed on the computer many times over and over and over, very specifically. I don't have a specific way, a formula. Right now, I'm really interested in prepping all the canvases as notebook pages, you know, large notebook pages, and then I'm painting on them. There's something about the notebook page that's really intimidating to me. So when I approach a canvas now, it's a giant notebook page, you know, a 9-foot notebook page. That's interesting. So it's making me do things that I didn't expect. But every painting really turns out different than what I thought, whatever I was thinking. I'm not sure whatever I thought it would be.
Questions?
I'm actually a middle school science teacher, okay? So I am non-artistic in every way.
Okay.
But I have several students who are very artistic, and they like doodle a lot in class and everything, and they're non-academics. What recommendation would you have for students to foster that, and me as a teacher to really appreciate the gift that they have? Because it's something that I don't fully understand, but they would rather be artistic and explore that side, and I'd like to encourage that, and maybe school isn't the right avenue for them. Right. You know, how do you as a teacher, and how do you really foster that in children? You know, like yourself, maybe you were the same way when you were in 7th grade.
I was. I have no idea how to foster things. I'm not a teacher. I really don't, but I was that way. I can speak on that. I mean, I was a terrible student through high school. In fact, there's a science teacher, Mr. Coggins. Are you here tonight? He was here last night. So. All right. Well, Monty Coggins was one of the teachers that actually he's one of the few. He really is the one that kind of gave me space and admired what I did. And I didn't read. I didn't study. Not until well into college did I read a book or do assignments outside of doodling. I doodled constantly. I don't know if there's really a lot of hope for kids doing that in science class. I mean, I think that's okay.
Well, they may have a future in the medical profession as a,
For sure.
Yes.
Y'all remember what Leland used to say? These are classmates of mine that had studied under Leland Wallen used to tell us about painters that want to be surgeons. Do you remember this? Well, he used to say, they went on to medical school because they had such specific talents with their hands that they would serve. Now, I have no idea how that kind of thinking transfers. So that was terrible in science, in that, really bad. I don't know. I will say that I see in my children, one is always in the now. He never thinks about what's before or after tomorrow or the day, like never. And he's not methodical at all, but he expresses himself constantly, and he makes things in creative ways that none of us, nobody else but him thinks of. Where I have a daughter that is so methodical that she doesn't even have to have natural ability for rhythm. She'll train herself and plays the piano and the violin and train herself to do it, where the other will sit there and like just belt out and you're like, good gosh, it's incredible. But he's like, you try to give him piano lessons and it's not going to show up. That was me. There's no rush. That was what I would think. Like for my kids, I'm thinking there's no rush. I had no clue. We didn't go on our first tour until I was 26 years old, like first official tour. I had no idea this is what my living would be. So we don't have to know. We still have to grow up, I think, a little earlier than we do. I recently just became a man. This year. How do I know? I don't know. I just feel it. I'm going to defer to my wife.
Specific moment.
Well, yeah, she can tell you about no, like the threshold of, this is totally off subject, but maybe not. The threshold of being a child into manhood, like a boy into manhood, I stayed in for a long time. I guess because I could. I think a lot of us can. That's not just me, but that's different.
I just want to make sure I get some people in the back.
Yeah, so when you do your work in your studio, do you put any music on? You listen to yourself?
Well, let's see. I mean, yeah, I have before. It's back and forth. Sometimes I can't take any music, and maybe we are performing something. Maybe there is a song that I've got to relearn that I used to sing that I don't know anymore. I will just loop for 2 hours. That happens. If it's something that's going to drive me to write, that's bad. That's not a good combo. That's a quiet distraction when I'm really focused. Because painting, it is so. Once you break through in that first hour or so, then you're so in, and that's when, really out of this world moments happen. They really do. It is a runner high. I mean, it is incredible. And once you get in that, you don't want to break out of it. So if I am listening to something, it is very repetitive. I like there's a group called Neurosis. Neurosis is like this really spacious metal. I like that type of thing. That's really good for me in the studio.
I can't imagine it was easy to share all these pieces in the exhibit. So I was wondering, what was the hardest piece for you to share and why?
Well, the boy eating, that one is very much this realization of this little me that's been put in check over the recent year. In that threshold I'm talking about, there's a dying off of that was very, very fragile and tender and very vulnerable for me. And I realized in hindsight, look at the painting, it really looks a lot more like me than it did the portrait that I was making of my son. It really is. It's much more me at 7 years old than it is him. And I realized, I kind of looking back on it, it dawned on me that I can't help but paint this little me right now. But that's the one. That's the one. I don't want to trail off. That's the one.
You can ramble. You can ramble.
Yeah,
Speaking along those same lines, the music does come from a place of vulnerability, where you open up yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, your fears, whatever. The same thing being with the artwork. When you put a song out into the world, it's out into the world and it changes and becomes what whoever's listening to it is feeling or experiencing at the time. With your artwork, how do you let go of those things that touch you so tenderly and came from that place inside of you? How do you go about sharing it to the world into the point of where you can actually sell it and let it go and become something else to someone else?
Yeah, I know. That the painting with the boy with the toy gun, it's one of those tender moments. Very, very dear, very special to me. And I don't really know. I think somewhere along, I mean, you used to not be able to imagine parting with any of them.
Right.
And now, I've just kind of said, you know what? What am I going to do with them anyway? I'm just going to, like, blinders and go, and they're available to the world, period. I bet later there'll be some that I regret, you know. And there are a few that I've chosen and said, you know, these stay. But, I don't know, I think it speaks to presence and really wrapping around the moment and not getting caught up. Nostalgia is something that I indulge in a lot and really, really, you know, I geek out on it. And I have to really put that in check and at bay because it can tear me apart.
And hold you back.
And hold me back. And so when I'm here now, really none of them matter. Really, they're just paint on canvas, you know. I know that's not true. They are really good representations of little moments that then I labor in spending time with those moments. So they are very nostalgic in that way. There's what I was going to say to you. This was what's the word?
Piggyback.
What is it?
Piggyback.
What is it?
Piggyback.
Yeah, that's it. Relates to that. Sorry. There's a painter in New York named Jacob Hayes who I sat for a portrait show called it was Artist Painting Artist, and it went on to be in the Smithsonian National Portrait Competition. And I sat for him the first day that I ever sat through therapy, and I was just a vulnerable wreck, and I mean so just small and damaged. And I didn't think a lot about it. I mean, I went in and sat for it because it was what I was going to do. But when I saw the painting, it was so that moment. And it's like, I gotta buy this painting. It is so realistic and so incredibly, and so like just so incredibly done. I mean, so incredibly realistic and naturalistic and so well done. I had to have it because it now sits in my studio, and I mean, it's so sad. It's so sad. Yeah, it's great. It's great. I mean, I look at it like, I'm not there anymore. This is awesome.
Maybe like one happy question, and then we're gonna stop.
Everyone knows getting sad here. I'm wearing this leather jacket.
And that shirt.
Yeah.
That shirt. Come on.
So Scott, in music, there's a natural life cycle. There's an album, a tour, recording, and a new album. For your visual art, what's that timeline look like after this? What's next for us who love it?
Yeah. Well, it's already happening. I mean, I've already moved on from a lot of this work, and I'm you know, one thing leads to another with the music and with the vision, with my painting, my printmaking. So that's kind of in real time, and that's been going on in real time since any of these pieces. These pieces are part of that real-time journey. So I see commonality and theme in this new group of work that I'm making now, if it's a group. Like I said, go back to 2012, I was like, I'm not in a cycle here. I'm gonna work until I have the work that I want to show, and when time is right, I'll know. So I don't see any point in making a deadline. Like, that's another thing. We work really hard to live in a bubble of creativity that has no budgets or deadlines. Say, you know what, we have to protect this. So I'm just steady working. Now I do, like I said, I do work much faster than I used to. And I also have learned how to delegate my resources, use my resources in better ways. So as screens are being made, I'm coming off a tour, I get home and there they are. Or while I'm on tour, I've designed what I'm going to paint, more or less, or at least where I'm going to start. And then I'm right in there, and it happens fast. So that's happening now, and it's I'm sure I'll show much sooner. In fact, I will have another small show in January at Soco Gallery in Charlotte with newer work. So which it will be, you know, I think communicating with this show very well and working. It relates to it. There's that word. It relates to it very well.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
It means a lot.
We're gonna stop because there's a party that's about to start. And I
Yeah.
hope you all are staying with us for this evening, and thank you all so
So much for being here. Really appreciate it.